Good evening. So first of all, thanks SVU for inviting me, and of course the Czech Center for hosting this. My name is, at least in Czech, it's Michael KRONDL, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what it is that I do. So I'm a visual artist. I typically work with photographs, which I then transform digitally and output as large installations. And more recently, I've also been making large drawings, but I'll talk about those in a moment. So one of my significant interests over the last 20 years or so has been how to address the issue of climate change with my artwork. And the event that sort of brought this home, quite literally, was the 2002 floods in Prague and elsewhere in the Czech Republic, but Prague was sort of more impactful to me. And it so happened that the following year, I was doing an artist residency organized by a Czech curator by the name of Miloš Vojtěchovský, and spent much of the summer in Prague in 2003. And in the end, what I would do is I would create this large installation piece. And to give you how this works, so this is the Palmovka Synagogue, which is in Libeň, which is sort of north of the center of the city. And that part of town, Libeň, had been severely impacted by the floods of the previous year. What I did was I took a series of photographs of the Vltava River. I seamed these together digitally, and then I had a billboard company output this very, very large print, which I then installed on the floor of the synagogue. So the idea was that I would flood the space, virtually, of course, virtually in this particular case. And this would allow people to walk on water, again, virtually. And with some trepidation, I expect. People are always uncomfortable walking on these installations, which is part of the point. This is an aerial view. Now, one of the things that interests me is this idea of your body responding to the art instead of responding intellectually, so that it is your body that reacts first and perhaps your mind reacts later on. Because as you know, photographs typically function as windows. You look through it particularly at a landscape, right? And it's over there. But here, I wanted it to be immersive. Immersive in a way that, again, harkens back to Prague, particularly to the Baroque architecture. So if you think of Baroque architecture, this is Svatý Mikuláš, or Saint Nicholas in Malá Strana. If you think of Baroque architecture, the painting interacts with the architecture, with the sculpture, and you don't know where you are. It dissolves space. It's an irrational space. And I kind of want to do something similar with these photographic installations. So, for example, this was done in a Brooklyn gallery, outdoors, clearly. This was done in a Manhattan gallery. And once again, the idea is to hit that primitive midbrain before it goes to the higher functions. This was in Montreal. This was a more permanent installation with images that were taken in the area around there. And this was in California, and this, I will not remember the name of the the glacier, but it is in Iceland, and it has retreated in the last 10 years by over 1 kilometer. More recently, this was done in October at the South Street Seaport. I was commissioned to do a piece that specifically referenced global warming by the Waterfront Alliance. It was part of Climate Week. And the idea was to create a kind of a crevice. So this is two views of the same installation, right? Looking one direction and looking the other direction. So the idea was to kind of create a kind of crevice in the actual pier itself to remind you of, well, the thing that's coming, right? When the water starts rising. See, I told you this was going to take too long. So I have been doing this with drawings as well, creating these very large scale drawings. So this is about 3 meters across, so you're seeing it maybe twice as big as it actually is. And once again, I'm kind of speaking to what photographs do. So these are also about, I don't know, 2.5 meters or something like that. And these couldn't exist without photography. They're each taken at 1/2000th of a second. And they're actually the same wave taken 3/100ths of a second apart or something like that. Here's a close-up. And very recently, I've been making these things that I'm calling portraits. They're of burnt trees. And I think of them as having kind of the personality of a human portrait, or maybe a death mask of a human portrait. And I'm going to end right there.